Hi, this is Matt Rosen, host of The Grit Mindset. As you know, season one of The Grit Mindset is complete, and before season two launches, it would be fun to revisit some of the episodes that shaped the show the most and share those with you. There's no better place to start than episode one with Michelle Johnson. She's my dear friend. She's the CIO at Freeman, which was our first client. She was a CIO for hire at Fortium Partners when we recorded. Now she's the CIO at Associa, which is our longest running client. Michelle took a chance on a brand new podcast host, me, who had no idea what he was doing yet when the show launched. And she gave me two ideas in that first conversation I've carried through to everything since. The first is that it takes grit to quit. That's not a catchphrase, it's a real observation. Sometimes the gritty move isn't to keep pushing, it's to walk away from what isn't working so you can put your energy somewhere where it will, or really refocus your energy. It's kind of what I'm doing here with the break between season one and season two. The second is a quote from the women's Duke basketball coach, which was, "You learn how to do hard better." It's not easier, better. That's really the grit mindset summarized in one sentence. Grit isn't about life getting smoother as it really does. It's about being more skilled at handling things when they get hard. So the episode with Michelle is going to air right after this. I hope you can listen in and learn some things from our conversation. Season two is on its way. Until then, stay gritty out there. This is Matt Rosen, and this is the Grit Mindset with me, your host, Matt Rosen. The mission of the Grit Mindset is to inspire and empower listeners by delving deep into the journeys of those who have faced significant challenges and emerged stronger. Through authentic conversations, we uncover the mindsets, strategies, and lessons that have propelled these individuals to overcome adversity and achieve success. My aim is to provide actionable insights and real-world advice to help our listeners cultivate their own grit and navigate their personal and professional lives with confidence and resilience. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Grit Mindset podcast with Matt Rosen. That's me, your host. This is episode one of hopefully many. I've got my dear friend and first client, Michelle Johnson, with me. I'd like her to go ahead and introduce herself, and we'll get into the Grit Mindset and what it's all about.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. Michelle Johnson. Currently, I'm a partner with Fortium Partners. We do fractional and interim, CTO, CIO, and CISO services, so executive technology services for companies needing some help.
Awesome. You have no Fortium and Burke and the folks there well,
Yep.
and
Good group.
yeah, it's a great group, and awesome that you're on board with them. You'll do great things with them. So to kind of get us started, as we're talking about the grit mindset, we really want to talk about your early life, any defining experiences that helped you get to the successful executive you are today.
Oh boy, early. That goes way back. I was big into sports. I was pretty naturally competitive at a young age, and so through soccer and basketball and volleyball, I played about everything. But basketball was really my favorite. What I really dedicated a lot of time to. I remember I started as a junior on the varsity team, and was just trying not to make a mistake, so to speak. And I had the coach come up to me one time and show me some of the stats. And yeah, I'd done okay, but he kind of put me in this kind of friendly headlock. And he's like, "Johnson, I can put anybody out there to run the baseline. I need you more active. You need to be doing things. You need to be, turning the ball over, missing shots, making shots, but you need to be doing more and being active." And I thought, well, okay, I guess it's okay to maybe make some mistakes. He let me do that, let me engage more in the game. And I think overall it taught me, even all the way through the rest of my life, like, you got to be in it, you got to experience, you got to engage. I went on to be a first team All-State basketball player, honorable mention All-American in college, and just kind of taken that competitiveness and just not afraid to get in there and engage and make things happen. One way or another, you're going to learn from it, and then you're going to keep growing.
Yeah, I understand you had a heck of a college career and actually beat the team that Caitlin Clark was on, right?
In high school. In high school, yeah. That was well before the Caitlin Clark days, I think.
Well before her era. No,
yeah,
that's
I
great.
grew up in Iowa, though. Yep.
Well, no, we had the opportunity to work together, for almost well over a decade. Mm-hmm. And you're always very competitive in the role at Freeman, where you served as CIO. I'm curious, what does grit mean to you, both personally and professionally? Because I saw you exhibit a lot of what I define as grit, but how do you define it?
Grit to me is being able to recognize when a situation needs more focus, needs elevated engagement, needs maybe some tough decisions. maybe encouragement, but just a higher level engagement for I would say an undetermined amount of time, until you know what needs to happen on the other end. And I'll also say it takes grit to quit. That's not a catchphrase. I kind of made that up.
I like it.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not always about doing everything and anything forever. I think also knowing when to step away can be just as gritty of a situation.
Yeah. Well, I know there were some challenging times you faced because we worked together through a lot of them. And when I think about grit, it is that sustained effort through, again, a long period of time and not knowing what it's going to take to come out the other side. But maybe you can share a really tough obstacle you faced in your career. How did you navigate through it? What insights did you learn?
Yeah. Oh boy. I think being a CIO is grit enough. I respect all functions and leaders, but being a CIO, I think, is gritty every day. One example I would say is when I became CIO of kind of the enterprise. I had the opportunity to be CIO of a business unit, but I tell you, stepping into being the CIO, where the buck stops at you, I realized that it was, I'll go back to a sports analogy, it was like being an assistant coach for a long time, or being a parent in the stands, and then being the one in the seat at the table, accountable and responsible for answering everything. And it really, I just remember it was surprising, even though I had been at the company, I had been working at the company for a while, just really understanding that it's going to take an elevated game, it's going to take more focus, more understanding, just heightening all the skills that got me there. It was still at the next level. That took a while to really get over that learning curve.
Well, I've known a lot of CIOs over the years. That's in the business of who I've served for the last 25 years. But in terms of CIOs go, you handle the challenges with more grit as well as grace, better than the rest that I've worked with. So, question I'd have is, you talked about gaining a seat at the table and becoming the enterprise CIO at Freeman. Kind of talk about how you elevated your game and really gained a seat at the table with the executives there.
It took showing up and being on every single day at every single meeting and every single relationship. I felt like I was putting that in at other roles that I had, so it's not like I wasn't doing that before. But you're seen, with different expectations. You are the one running that show, and you're responsible for, all things happening at the company, even, from a business side that's affected by all the tech. So I think it was, really studying all the different topics, all the different, nooks and crannies that maybe just being a business unit CIO or being a VP of App Dev, you didn't necessarily have all the exposure to. And it was the first time reporting to a business leader, right? I had been reporting to other technology leaders, before then, and that's different. You're not something they think about every day. And so whether it's, who you're reporting to or the way your peers, start interacting with them, it's the degree and the span of topics and the awareness of what those topics mean to who you're talking to from a business level, I think, was really the difference. And being able to just be a student and elevate that study of the business.
Well, the cool thing was I got to watch you in action through a lot of it.
Yeah, yes,
it was awesome. Obviously technology is changing really fast. There's things like AI, and every day there's a new buzzword. Given the fact that you're consulting now with a couple clients, how do you personally just kind of keep up with things and stay ahead of the game? Because does require grit to stay up with this fast pace of technological change.
Absolutely. Well, I think one thing, I think the DFW area and the tech groups and the tech networks that we have here is just, unmatched. It's the options and the variety and the access that we have to learn consistently about any topic and anything that you want to know about. You also have, between having a network of tapping into that, I do that all the time, and then reading. And I think with reading, the grit is to filter how much you, bring to your inbox to sift through. But those are kind of the three things. I'm more of a in-person learner, if you will, and back and forth. But I think reading in the network in Dallas is paramount.
Yeah, the network in Dallas is great. Can you talk about just the impact that networks had on your professional career?
Oh man, I mean, sitting here with you on the first episode,
It's awesome.
whoever would have thought of the opportunities? But no, I think from a tech network, it just has always, I feel like I've grown up with some of my CIO colleagues for 10, 12, 15 years, and we just have learned along the way, learned from each other. Sometimes it's not even about having to share what our days have been like because we all have been going through some of the same stuff. So that support structure, I think, is huge. And I'll go back to just being a CIO and what you face every day. And then also just friendships. I mean, you're a friend of mine. You're not, just a partner that I've worked with in the past. I have tons of friends that we have dinner at each other's houses. We, go out with significant others, and it's turned into just a bond that I think is so important when you're going through the types of stuff we do in the tech space.
So obviously, being a CIO is a tough gig. You know, you often don't get phone calls to say how well things are going. It's, oh my gosh, just the email's down or this application's down. It's kind of a thankless job. So I admire everyone that sits in your shoes. One thing we'd love to hear, and the listeners would love to hear, is maybe hear an inspiring story, something that's really profoundly shifted your understanding of grit and determination.
This is probably the example, a huge lesson that comes to mind. Wasn't some big, enormous thing, but it did shift kind of how I paid attention to things going forward. As a CIO, I gave report outs to the board probably 3-4 times a quarter between board meetings, audit committees, risk committees, all that good stuff. And it wasn't my first time doing it, but lots of stuff going on, kind of got rushed, and I went into the one of the meetings and didn't have all my facts, and kind of ended up down some rabbit holes. It wasn't a complete disaster, but there's just things that I didn't have ticked and tied to go in and report out things at that level that the audience needed to be confident in, understand, and move on, right? And I got some feedback from some of my peers and some advice, strong advice. And I realized that you're only as good as your last board presentation.
Right.
Thankfully, it wasn't my first, so they knew I had it in me a little bit, right? And I was still coming up the curve. But from that point forward, and I respected our board, of course, immensely, and they taught me so much through my time during those presentations and outside the boardroom. And I made sure every single time that I had one-on-one focused, committed time with my team or the team members I needed to make sure that we were on the same page with what we needed to say, that I was on the same page with what the details and the facts were, and learned how to navigate those conversations. So that trust is a big factor at that level, and that was huge. I took that forward on many levels and give that advice, board meetings or not. As a CIO, so much depends on kind of how you can deliver and maintain that, that relationship with people.
Yeah, really understanding that audience, huge. What they want to hear, how they want to hear it, what level of detail.
Exactly.
So I'm sure that's been something you
kind of makes me twitch just thinking about it again.
It didn't sound like a fun board meeting.
Yeah, it needed to be learned.
So what qualities stand out to you as the most in individuals that you see demonstrate grit?
I think focus with the self-awareness of everybody in the situation. Usually when a grit situation comes up, it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
And it's going to be everybody rolling up their sleeves and staying on the same page. And maybe, people having to get put in certain places or certain situations or certain roles that you got to take over a little bit. And I think people that I see or I've been a part of, when they show recognition, they acknowledge the situation, and they are transparent and stay on the same page with how we're going to get through it. I think that grit in leadership, and show by example, right? That I'm not going to tell you this is going to be gritty, and then I'm leaving and coming and going as I please. I'm there with you. I think that example and awareness of the situation is huge, especially in a team environment.
Yeah, but you talked about grit being something that it takes grit to stay in, but also takes grit to leave. Can you share a little bit of the story when you decided to dive into the grit and change the situation?
Yeah, I would say it was back at the time of taking that enterprise CIO role.
Yeah.
Is this? I mean, I thought about it right before I accepted the opportunity, but it's like I don't take those decisions lightly. But stepping up into that and the unknown of how that's going to continue to evolve, I made it work, and I figured out how to get a different schedule, get some different focus, learn the delegation, how to study, how to spend time, how to be effective with my time. And it was a lot of hours before being able to, feel like it was a whole new role and a whole new position. And you knew it going in, but you really had to dig in and make sure that you were on point every single day.
Yeah. Well, we got to work together through a lot of that time. It was fun to watch how you evolved into that role. Any daily habits or routines that you rely on to stay kind of focused and grounded? Because it's like you were pulling some long hours, and especially during the pandemic.
Yes.
What did you do to kind of keep yourself sane?
Not sure I did. It was the pandemic would be a whole nother episode, I think, of how.
We'll get you back for a later episode.
Yeah.
Pandemic grit.
Pandemic grit. That's a whole nother level. Yeah, because they say it takes 30 days to make or break a habit, and we were in that grit for multiple years.
Yeah.
So the question was, routines.
Yeah,
routines
daily
that I have.
routines, things you do, keeping yourself grounded, resilient, effective.
Yeah. To me, this sounds so basic, but sleep. I don't sleep well, but I make an effort to try to get the sleep, the quality sleep.
At least 5
that I
hours.
need. Yeah, exactly. I mean, and I don't wake up in the middle of the night and all that good stuff. So I really stay focused. I track my sleep. There's plenty of apps that do that now, but between sleep and I have also found like 30 minutes of exercise 3 to 4 times. I mean, as soon as I could figure out that it didn't have to be an hour in the gym or you were a failure, right? And and all that kind of stuff. It was more finding that mental balance of going for a walk outside, but also making that time for yourself to do whatever. I also have 2 English bulldogs that are very important to me, and I think they've been a big part of kind of doing what they want and not doing what I say, and it kind of keeps you grounded. And of course, family.
Yeah.
I mean, family. I'm really close to my family, and that, and they call me out when they know that I'm kind of in a different place than I should be, or that I like to be.
It's also nice that you have a nice vacation spot you can go to from time to time.
I do, yes, a little place called Belize that I think you're familiar with.
Yeah.
That's been a good safe
About a
haven
mile
as
down
well.
the beach from one another, beach neighbors.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it's awesome. Well, we're getting close to wrapping up. So if you could leave our listeners really with one piece of advice, cultivating grit, what would that be? What would you like to share?
Cultivating grit. I would say putting yourself and looking for opportunities to learn, engage, taking the roles that are offered to you, understanding what's in it for you, what you're learning from it, how to stretch yourself, but also be aware of the bigger picture and the goals that you have personally and professionally. There's been times when I've had to take a step back and physically challenge myself, mentally dedicated to ensuring I'm aligned with my own goals, right? Between all the goals and all the objectives that we have out there in our world, go after it. To follow the advice from my high school basketball coach. Engage. Don't just run up and down the baseline, right? Engage, and you're going to learn and experience. I mean, through the experiences of kind of putting a foot out there, I end up with great friends, great places I've traveled, friends for life, and it's the way I like to live.
So Michelle, you and I were talking about this. What would you tell your younger self about the importance of grit in the professional world?
Oh boy. Well, I think it's important would be important to, elevate your wine tasting a little sooner in your
It always helps.
in your post 21 life. Yes, but the things that you learn through athletics, the things that you learn through undergrad and your studies, it doesn't get easier. I think to quote the women's basketball coach at Duke, you learn how to do hard better.
Yeah.
And once you get that and you understand that, go have fun with it, because it's going to be an awesome adventure.
No, that's great. Thank you for sharing. Anything else you'd like to share with our listeners before we sign off the first episode of Grit Mindset?
Hey, stay tuned for more.
Yeah.
I'm sure it can only go up from here. But hopefully they enjoyed it, and I think this is a great topic with like you said, tons of people in the area that can provide.
Well, Michelle, thank you for coming on for our inaugural show. We hope to have you back. Thanks for sharing your amazing story. It's honored to call you my friend, and thanks for coming on and being our first guest and sharing your story with everyone that's listening in today.
All right. Thank you much, Matt.
Well, this is going to conclude the Grit Mindset with Matt Rosen. Thanks all for tuning in. Thanks, Michelle Johnson, for being my guest, and we look forward to seeing you on another episode.